What's cooking, YouTube? Uncozo's back with another detailed review, this time to wrap up the WoW 12, Way Away 12s. Hope everyone had a happy holidays and happy new year, and hopefully the 2026 year will bring us even more shoe reviews. Before we start, I just want to remind everybody to like and subscribe to the video. That helped me a lot. This is a channel that is hosting shoe review for uncles by uncle, so every bit helps. Without further ado, let's talk shoes. So in the original initial review, we talked about how this shoe could be the best shoe of all time. We're gonna dive into details to see if that still holds true. So I'm 5'10", 185 pounds. I play 1 through 4. Before change of pace and dishing dimes, my modes of attack is usually 6 shots, 4 drives, 6 out of 10. From that point of view, let's talk about the Wild 12s. The fit is true to size, as we talked about in the initial review. If you're narrow foot, you can definitely go true to size. However, these shoes are not really made for narrow foot, and there is a little bit of a gap, which you will feel once you start playing in it. It does hurt the lockdown a bit. Price, these are not cheap, $225 US, about $300 Canadian. The later models are a little cheaper, $275 and then $210 US. As flagship shoe goes, this is about that price range, which is not a cheap shoe. Speaking of which, I'm considering other avenues of income to supplement the channel just because these are not cheap and I've been kind of funding it as a hobby. But if we want to go more reviews, which some of you do, I'm going to need other avenues of income to support something that will allow me to review more shoes. So in the future, I mean, maybe you look for a Patreon or maybe OnlyFans, you know. Leave a comment down below if you feel like you can support an upstart YouTuber like me. Let's get into a detailed review of the Wild 12's Player Assist Tech, pad. So I am changing this segment a little bit. We talk about the pad a lot, which is wonderful. This is what people are here for. However, some shoes are designed to accentuate the Player Assist Tech because you want to feel the bounce. You want to feel the rebound. But some shoes are designed specifically to minimize the impact of pad or remove them altogether. In return, they emphasize the motion engineering and minimize interference of the shoe, which makes the shoe that much more enjoyable to use. For the different uncles, you may prefer different things. So for me to rate a pad high and penalize a shoe for its minimal interference and maybe minimal pad is not exactly fair. So in this segment, we're gonna start talking about pad for sure, but we're also talking about motion interference or lack thereof. Usually they're inversely correlated. If a pad is strong and you can feel it, the motion interference would probably be higher because it is pushing you to do certain things, and vice versa. For this segment, there will be 2 ratings, and only the higher of the 2 will be taken into consideration for the final overall grade. I'll give bonus points if the shoe managed to achieve a low interference and a high pad. We're experimenting with new things in the channel, so let's get started. And let me know in the comments below if you like the new format. So the Wild 12s comes with a full-length Super Boom. Some like to call it 2 layers of Super Boom because you have the carbon fiber plate sandwiched between it. This whole system is called the carbon core drive system. What this usually does, and if you don't know, if you're new to CCDS, it really allows the carbon fiber plate to be more responsive to how the foam reacts when you step on it. It also minimizes excess rebound when the carbon fiber plate bounces back from your motion because the foam will be on the top layer to absorb some of the crazy impact if you're not using it. In most shoes, the CCDS is a very well-tuned system. And in the future, we'll talk about some shoes that don't have a good CCDS, but most CCDS are pretty good. This is the first time we've seen the CCDS with Super Boom, which is a very unstable foam, the newest from LiNing. I have to say, they did a really good job fine-tuning the Super Boom in here. The CCDS midsole is perfectly integrated into the shoe. If you try the 8085 Ultra, one of the thicker Super Boom, and you realize that the Super Boom is extremely bouncy, sort of like the CQT Extreme from 361. The big problem with that, we talked about interference before, and that really increases the interference of the shoe because when you step into the shoe, it constantly rebounds into you. The Wild 12 really minimized that crazy bounciness without really giving up neither the impact protection or active bounce when you actually want that energy return. They did that through really the carbon fiber plate and maybe retuning Super Boom a little bit. So another part of the pad for this shoe is the upper. A lot of reviewer has talked about this already, and this is a foam upper, if you can believe it. They didn't really talk about what exactly is in the foam upper, but my guess is actually probably thermoplastic Super Boom. So what does this upper actually do that's so great? So it doesn't have a hard flex point. When you flex the shoe, the entire upper flex with it. What that does is that you don't feel any pinching whenever you have to flex the shoe, unlike some of the upper. It feels like almost like leather. When you flex leather, you don't have a hard point of flex. A lot of TPU upper, before you break them in, has a hard point of flex, which creates pinching, it creates discomfort. The second part is, I've used these shoes for a month now, and a lot of flexing, a lot of drives and whatnot. There is not a single bit of creasing on the upper. Yes, this is not a performance thing, but it certainly looks great. I mean, there's a lot of dirt on it, but it looks great because, especially for a limited colorway like this, you want to keep your shoe as pristine as possible. I mean, I get stepped on a lot, so there's not much I can do about that. But there's no creasing, unlike, you know, something like the Harden 9s where the second you step in the shoe is already creased. So another part of this upper that's so great is because it's bouncy. And that's why I'm guessing it's Super Boom, because it's actually very bouncy inside. When you put your feet into it, it feels amazing. Think about it. It's just a foam on the bottom wrapping around your foot. Is also foam. It feels wonderful. Stepping comfort. Of all my shoes, the only one who can even come close to this thing is the AJ40s. And AJ40 is about 200 grams heavier than this thing. The downside for this is mostly a foam composite upper. Breathability is limited. Specifically, it's not really breathability because the heat actually does dissipate through all the holes that are around the shoe. It's moisture. You know that foam just retains moisture too well. And with something like this, even though your feet doesn't heat up, sweat certainly stays in it. Onto the new part of this segment, motion interference. The shoe has bounce. Great bounce actually, and great flex. They've turned the Super Boom to be a lot more firm than your other Super Boom shoe, like in the 8085 Ultra, for example. The Super Boom always just feels like a slightly bouncier and softer boom. So this really minimizes the motion interference of the shoe. The pad's not entirely invisible. It's impossible for something of this magnitude of bounciness. But you really don't need to feel that until you need it to kick in. So with that, I would rate the Wild 12 SS grade in pad and B grade in the motion interference. Since it does such a good job minimizing interference despite the pad, I would upgrade the SS grade to an SSS grade. Now on to Uncle Soul's 4 pillars of performance and safety. Let's start right away with traction. Full-length GCU. It is no shock to anyone who follows LiNing shoes that their flagship will feature a full-length GCU. And this is, again, another Neo Mix GCU. They're never happy with it, even after they created the JB3s. They're never happy with how the GCU performs, so once again, they create another mix of GCU. So this one is pretty squeaky. It's decent squeak when you step on a clean cord. Louder the better, right? So traction on clean cord is like any other GCU, is very crispy, is very sharp. On dusty cord is interesting. This GCU actually doesn't attract too much dust. Even after playing on a very dusty cord, it's a very light wipe, but it does affect the grip, unfortunately. So if you used GCU before, you know that on a clean cord or when it's clean, it bites like a death grip. Shoe gets stuck onto the ground and you just stop on a dime. It's good for a lot of players, especially if they're very shifty and they need to shift gear right away. For an uncle like me, it puts a lot of stress when I'm doing my change of pace and I'm trying to slow down, on my ankles especially. When it attracts dust, it goes from that kind of death grip to a Nike clean grip is the best way I can describe it. There is a little bit of give as you put weight into the shoe. It doesn't slide, but it's not a complete stop. I can tell you from experience, when I played on the cleaner cord, I definitely feel a lot more soreness out of my ankles day after, because I've been playing with death grip the entire night. Cushioning, talked about in the pad, full length Super Boom with a carbon fiber plate in it. the CCDS. The CCDS is tuned perfectly with the Super Boom. Amazing bounce and great impact protection. Again, with the firm bounciness of the shoe, this cushion, especially in the forefoot, feels a lot lower to the ground than it really should be. It just speaks to the responsiveness of the shoe. It's very responsive, so when you're pressing down on it, again, that motion interference, right? The lower you feel, the less interference you're feeling from the shoe. Stability. So this is about as perfect as a shoe can get. And we'll talk about that in the motion engineering. They're able to design an outrigger this far out into the shoe to increase its forefoot stability, but they managed to put this design in without damaging the shiftiness of the shoe. Heel is relatively narrow. To increase the stability of the heel, they put in 2 carbon fiber composite stabilizers. These are soft stabilizers, so they're not hard carbon fiber. I think it's just a layer of carbon fiber sticker keeping all that stabilizer together. This increases the stability of the heel because of this exposed Super Boom being unstable. So they were able to stabilize the heel with the 2 stabilizers. And then in the front, any kind of potential roll will be stopped by the outrigger. And the outrigger is designed so that it's not actually a hard outrigger. There is no trigger point where if you go over a certain level, it will tip over. Torsional support, I mean, this thing has a full-length carbon fiber plate in it. And this torsional support is absolutely great. Now, lockdown. Lockdown for this shoe, from a functionality, a safety standpoint, the lockdown is also perfect. The heel counter is plushy and amazing. It keeps your heel locked. There's no slippage that will cause any kind of damage in the heel. Once you put your foot into it, there is no lockdown hotspots. In most shoes, especially if they're snug, when you put the shoe onto your foot, there is going to be some points that are going to be a little tighter than others. It's not enough to cause damage, no pain or numbness, but it's enough to say, this shoe is a little tight here. There's no spot like that in the Wild 12. And that's thanks to the new foam upper. So that's the positive. Talk about the negative of the shoe, and I got to, right? I can't just praise the Wild 12 blindly. So the downside is from the performance side. While you don't slide out, you ever slide out the footbed or the heel, I think this is a problem with Super Boom and CQT Extreme or any kind of foam that is just way too bouncy. When you compress the heel or the forefoot to its near maximum, when you're going for a hard diagonal cut or a very hard defensive stop like this, the Super Boom compresses as far as it can. And what that does is drop your heel or your forefoot far below the upper or the heel counter of the shoe. So you never slide out of it because in fact you're dropping deeper into the shoe itself. But what this creates is a little bit of room here and a little bit of room here. You definitely have those micro slides where you go too deep into heel and you shift a little bit, or you go too deep into the footbed and you shift a little bit. I would say it hurts the performance a little bit because you do lose power. If you experience any kind of sliding in the footbed, to regain control of your steps, you need to press down a little bit harder. Unfortunately, that damages the performance slightly, very slightly. These are micro slides. This is a very nitpicky thing with the Wild 12. So with that considered, the 4-pillar score for the Wild 12 is an SS plus from Uncle Soul. Now the performance for the Wild 12. This is another new segment for my channel. I'm going to change transition into motion engineering. I talk about transition a lot. The important thing to know, transition really comes from minimizing the impact of the shoe as you take steps. So what really constitutes good transition is you're able to transfer your entire foot's energy from heel all the way to toe, and you can take any kind of action you would take as if you're barefoot. The more you can do that, the more that the shoe doesn't feel like it's there, the better your transition. It's that simple. So how do you do that as a shoe designer to minimize the impact of all the tech around your midsole and your outsole while keeping them still protecting your feet? And that's what motion engineering really is. So we will be talking motion engineering from now on. For the Wild 12's motion engineering of the shoe is, I don't even know how to describe it, over-engineer. The transition is near perfect. The heel shade is similar to a human heel. It allows you to transition any point in your step as if you were stepping on a heel. And then because it's Super Boom underneath, even though the heel of the shoe is bigger than the heel, because it's Super Boom, you can kind of step through that and really get down as low as possible. And once you get into midfoot, LiNing is absolutely incredible when they come to design the medial side. This part allows you to really press, because of exposed Super Boom, really allows you press down on the center of gravity, transitioning into the forefoot. So I don't think I never really need to talk about LiNing with their medial step transition. Their lateral step transition in this one, they basically did the same thing on the outer by exposing this part of the foam. What that allows your foot to do is if you ever step into like a defensive step where you're going to hard heel counter stop here and then you need to roll back, a lot of shoe when you step into this point forces your foot down because it's just straight up rubber here. This allows this to come down a little bit because it's exposed here so that your foot is not immediately coming down this way. It's to naturally rolls into your step. So again, lower center of gravity allows you to transition much better. And into the forefoot, we talk about the heel counter when it comes from a safety standpoint. The incredible part is when you combine this lower center of gravity into this heel counter, you see how this heel counter is roll up. Actually transitions perfectly into the roll so that you don't actually feel there's a hard rubber heel counter here. If you do feel this, you feel like, oh yeah, I'm safe. But at the same time, there's a huge rubber kind of in the way of my step. Here, you don't feel that because the foot actually kind of compresses outwards so that you just rolls into your heel counter. Very well engineered. The motion engineering for the shoe is absolutely perfect. One of the best, aside from the upper, is the best part of the shoe. Forget the midsole. A lot of people talk about how bouncy the midsole is, how great the Wild Trials midsole is. I think the best part is the upper. And the second best part is the motion engineering for the shoes. Is way over engineered. Motion engineering for the shoe is an SSS grade. The material is premium. I mean, you got the Super Boom on the bottom. You got some kind of supercritical foam on the top. And then it's this beautiful material that, you know, no matter how much you flex, it stays the same. Comfort's top notch. You can see the inner is stitched so nicely. It feels like a luxury shoe when you step into a pair of Wild Trials. The material is easily SSS grade, if not for the laces. This is the point that I really don't like. And I'm actually gonna change these out. The laces are very premium feeling. The top of laces is this metal thing. And you don't tuck this metal thing into the shoe or something to keep it from bouncing around. All that motion engineering and more that motion interference minimization is useless because you feel the shoe because you feel this thing bouncing around like crazy. And that's the part that I really don't like about the Wild Trials. And usually I tuck them away. It really, I mean, this is silly. You've designed a shoe to be absolutely perfect in terms of disappearing into your feet. And then you come up with this metal thing that drags the weight around the shoe. That's the one part that I'm going to take a grade out. So the material is SS grade for me. Breathability, we talked about this before. In terms of heat dissipation, with all the holes around the shoe, great. You don't actually really feel like your foot heats up in the Wild Trials. However, moisture retention also too high. There's a few times where, you know, I had a very hot day and a very good game, and then afterwards I come out, my socks are soaked and some part of the inner is wet, and you know. So for breathability, B grade. Style, it is a very clean look, especially the sculpture colorway. But this is also where a lot of criticism comes from, and I can understand why. Because if you really look at it from a picture standpoint, it feels like an all city. It feels like a Wade all city. The design's a little too simple. There's not a lot of feature that you see on the shoe that really screams a Wade shoe. Because you look at the 10s, you look at the 9s, you look at the 11s, there's a lot of really little intricate design features in the old Wades that are just screams like this is a Wade flagship shoe. You don't see that in the Wild Trials. There is no big design feature that really stands out and say, hey, this is a flagship shoe. If you look at it from the looks alone, yeah, it really does feel like an all-city line shoe. But an all-city line shoe does not have the material of the Wild Trials. So the second this comes into your hand, you feel this thing, you put it on your foot, you're like, nah, this is not an all-city. This is a proper Wade flagship shoe. Some people don't like the style. I like the simple style. I like the AJ40s as well. Yeah, not quite a flagship look, but I like that kind of clean style shoe. So let me know in the comments below. Do you like a more simple, clean, streamlined look? Or do you want the flagship shoe to really scream the personality of the player it represents, kind of like the Kais? So price to performance. This is interesting because first, this is a very expensive shoe. Let's get that out of the way. But it is, and it's also in limited supply. So some colorway like the sculpture is selling for $50 to $100 higher than its retail price already. If you're buying it from a reseller for extra dollars, not worth it. Wait until, you know, this becomes a general release, and then you can get a pair for at least retail. The shoe tech and performance-wise, the performance is wonderful for the Wild Trials. But you can get something that's, you know, maybe 80%, 70% as good as this shoe for half or maybe even less nowadays on sale. So if you're looking for a pair of best bang for buck basketball shoe, these are not it. These are great performers, but they ain't worth almost triple what you would get out of another pair of shoe. Like I know that the JB3s or the GT1s nowadays, you can probably get them for 80, 90 US dollars if they're on sale. So why would you pay $210, $220 for these ones, right? But if you have money to spend and you want as good as it gets, then these are worth the price you pay. So wrapping up the grading part of the review, I think these are amazing performers. I would put these as SS plus grade. This makes this the best shoe in my review so far. Better than the JB3s. Who would I recommend this shoe to? Athletic uncles and nephews who really likes pad, because when the pad kicks in, these shoes really kickstart your steps and kickstart your jumps. Also, uncles who like pads but don't like prominent pads, something like the 10s, or there it is, the Wild 10s, or the JB3s or the JB4s. Those are more prominent pads that you really feel it helping you, but you really feel the pad when you put on the shoe. These are definitely more subtle, but they do help you. Cardio uncle, this really helps them run. Engineering is great. Chill uncles will love these as well because they're so comfortable when you put them on. And here's the thing, the pad is subtle and it's quiet and it's nearly invisible and you don't need to use it. Yeah, you can get shoes that are comfortable and no pad and probably cheaper. Again, if price is no object, these are great for chill uncles just because how comfortable they are. Surprisingly great for a change of pace uncle like myself who wants to use carbon fiber plate, but can't. I've said it multiple times in my channel, I don't like carbon fiber plates, especially full length ones. They create so much stress when you are change of pace and you're trying to stop and the plate is trying to flex back at you because it wants to give you energy. I have to say that when I use these shoes, I do feel soreness and tiredness the day after. But the stress level is significantly lower than some of the other shoes that I've tested. So for change of pace uncles who really want to add carbon fiber to their diet, I would definitely recommend the Wild 12s. Great for shooters, bounce back on the forefoot from the Super Boom, and the plate, amazing. And they're actually great for shifty uncles, but they're great for shifty uncles who also likes to jump, who also likes a little bit bounce in their shoe. Uncles that like to be shifty, 1-2 moves, and then into a jump, into a shot. Those are the type of uncles that would really like the Wild 12s. They're not suited for sweaty feet uncles. Again, moisture retention issues too high. And they're not really good for uncles with older calves. I say that the stress level for these carbon fiber plate is low, but it's not none. If you use them too often, you will feel a lot of strain, especially in your ankles on a clean cord, and your calves. Moderation definitely required. So all in all, a banger, an amazing offering from the Weight Away line. Calf stress will keep me from using these every single game, but whenever I can, I will probably lace them up because these are just such good shoe and I already have them here. In terms of where it fits in my lineup, these have replaced my LiNing 5s, which is my favorite shoe. I mean, I haven't burned out my LiNing 5s yet, that's the sad part. In fact, there's still a lot of life left on my LiNing 5s, but I mean, I can't say no to this shoe. It's just, when you get on the court with these, you understand what I'm talking about. The Super Boom with the carbon core drive system is going to be the best tech around for a very long time. Until next time, remember to stretch.